I'm just going to start with a little poll. So I'm going to put this up, and it's anonymous. It's just one question. How much do you know actually now about solar energy? And you can just, kind of ballpark that, and it's all relative. People tend to, I think, underestimate their knowledge, so don't be bashful. Okay. So I don't know. I don't know if you could see the results. I haven't done this very often, but one person said low, don't really know much about, and two of you said moderate, know a bit about installing home solar and community solar. So that's good. There was a share the results thing I didn't do. All right, anyway, learning as I go. So, I think most of you are familiar with Sustainable Putnam, but for those of you who aren't, we're, a local nonpartisan community organization. We were just founded a little more than about a year and a half ago now, actually. And, we're not for profit, we're a 501c3 organization. And that's our mission statement there on the screen. And we're working to accomplish these goals through partnerships with, citizens like yourselves, through businesses, local governments, and other nonprofit organizations like Cornell Cooperative Extension and Second Chance Foods, which is a local food rescue organization. And, more broadly, even than that, our goals are really to increase our ecosystem's health, our economy's strength, and our community bonds. And I think really all three of those are complementary goals. In the course of doing all that, I think that we can actually save people money as well, which, that's kind of a universal desire. I think nobody would object to that. So we're going to start with this question, or continue really with this question. And the question is, what can you actually accomplish this week to make your home and your lifestyle more sustainable? So just take a minute to think about that. And if you said go solar, you're correct, because you could actually do it tonight. You could actually sign up for community solar. That's one way of going solar. Doesn't feel quite as maybe as cool or rewarding as actually putting panels on your roof where you can see them, but it has a very similar impact. But I'm also going to be speaking about putting panels on your roof, and I'm going to help you to figure out, what the best option is for you personally. It's different for everybody, although I will say that for most people, putting panels on the roof is a stretch. It can be a little difficult. But whatever your conclusion, the big point is that everybody should and can go solar, whether that means installing panels or going with community solar. And good news, living in New York State, we take advantage of New York State laws that make it easier. If you haven't heard of it yet, this is kind of the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, also referred to as the CLCPA, which is an abbreviation that drives me crazy, but there it is. It has the most ambitious goals in the nation for reducing greenhouse gases or carbon reduction, same thing. And the bullet points underneath that first bullet point there, 85% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. That is incredibly ambitious. And in order to meet that goal, one of the objectives will be to shift all of our energy use that is currently fossil fuels, whether that's oil or natural gas or coal, shift that to electricity. And then that electricity has to be cleaned up, right? It's got to be created through renewable energy sources. So the next bullet point, shift all energy uses to electricity, and then 100% emissions-free electricity by 2040. Again, very ambitious goal. There's an intermediate goal of 70% emissions-free electricity by 2030, which is just 9 years away. Again, very, very ambitious. And part of that is, wind power, offshore wind, onshore wind, battery storage, and the list goes on. But I wanted to underscore 6,000 megawatts of solar, which is a very large number. And in order to get that, we really need everybody in New York State to participate one way or another. And it's going to be a stretch. It's going to be a bit of a marathon or a sprint, at least to 2025. Fortunately, New York State offers really great programs, amongst the best in the nation in terms of rebates and tax incentives. New York State is really leading. The federal government is still offering a 26% tax credit, and I'll talk more about that later. So there's a lot of assistance out there for us to meet these goals. And even if you don't have money, if you or someone who's a low-income New Yorker, there's a Solar for All program that costs nothing and will save you money on your electric bill. So as I said, we're in pretty good shape in terms of what's available to us as New Yorkers.
So can you just say what PV stands for in the last slide?
PV?
PV.
Yeah, photovoltaics.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sorry about that. I'm going to get into details about that momentarily. So basically, a friend of mine actually created this decision tree for deciding what the best solar option is for you. And the answers are those 4 choices down at the bottom, actually only 3, because one of them is not available right now in New York State. I'll get into that more in a moment too. But let's just assume all of your answers to these questions are yes, right? Can you currently afford a long-term investment, either paying outright, with cash, or borrowing money at a reasonable interest rate that's not going to break the bank for you, right? You're still going to have food on the table, and so paying your mortgage, etc. If that's true, and you plan to stay in your home for the foreseeable future, let's just say at least 10 years, 15 years, 20 years is even better, and you own your own home, and your home is not heavily shaded, and you've got a reasonable amount of roof space relative to how much electricity you use. If all of those things are true, and that's a lot, there's not too many of us in this situation, then installing a home photovoltaic solar system on your roof is the way to go. And it's definitely the best payback in terms of the solar options available. Yeah. Is there a question? Okay. So that's if everything is yes, right? So let's consider some no answers. If you don't own your own home, then you want to do some form of community solar, either a share purchase or a share subscription. But again, right now, there's no share purchases available on any solar farms in our region. I'll talk about what share subscription means in a little while. If your home isn't suitable for solar, you've got a bad roof, it's got lots of nooks and crannies and dormers and that kind of thing, or you've got a lot of shade over your home, then again, community solar is probably the way to go. And if you don't plan to stay in your current home for the foreseeable future, you're going to retire and you're going to move to a condo, probably doesn't make sense to go to the trouble to install solar. I have heard arguments that, well, you'll get it back in resale value. I'm not so sure. And to be honest, I put panels on my home last year and it was a lot of effort on my part. It's a major project. Think of it as like an addition to your home. It's a big deal. You've got to deal with contractors, the utility, maybe the bank, etc. So that's another consideration. So if you can't afford that investment, and you're a low-income New Yorker, then Solar for All is the program for you. No upfront costs. There's no credit checks or anything like that. As long as you pay an electric bill, you can sign, and you have a minimal usage, like something like $50 a month, then you can sign up for Solar for All. If you're not a low-income New Yorker, and I'll explain what that means, I'll show you a chart, then a share subscription is the way to go, and that will save you 10% on your electric supply annualized over the course of a year. So that's it in a nutshell, and I'm going to share with you a survey that, but I had it right here. I'm going to share a link to a Google form that asks these questions, and you can walk yourself through it, at your leisure. I thought I would put it in the speakers notes, but I don't see it here now. So I'll have to share that with you later. But at any rate, don't worry about, remembering your answers to those questions, or you might have to think about some of those too. We'll get to it later. All right, so all right, just a couple of kind of side notes. A lot of people think when they get solar panels, if they get solar panels on their roof, and that's what I'm going to focus on now, is that if you install panels, that you're going to go off the grid. Probably not. I mean, there are a few people that just, use electricity for lights and a blender and a fan, and they can manage with solar panels on the roof and a small battery storage system. But for most of us, we're going to stay tied to the grid so that when it's cloudy or nighttime, we continue to get the electricity we want and need, and we don't have to pay a lot of extra money for a battery storage system. I looked into it. It's extremely expensive. It didn't seem worthwhile to me to get battery storage. So most people are going to stay connected to the grid. The other benefit of that is that any power you produce that you can't use at the moment, it gets fed back into the grid, and in effect, a process called net metering takes place, which you can think of it as your meter running backwards as you're pushing power out into the grid. Essentially, the utility is kind of paying you back for that power. That's the beauty of New York State laws that make that possible. And, of course, the grid is a very valuable thing to be connected to, because if something goes wrong with your system, you still have power. It keeps us connected to community solar farms, to grids in other states, and so forth. So all of that, I like to say it's an ecological principle. Diversity yields stability within the system. The more sources of power that are out there on the grid, the more stable the system could be overall. There's some caveats there, but I won't go into those. So I want to just quickly walk you through the system that a friend of mine installed, and he lives in Orange County. As a matter of fact, he runs Sustainable Warwick, a sister organization, and he installed this system in 2015. So the prices are a little off, but not that far off actually, because prices have actually come down for solar panels. He's installed two systems, and you can see over the pavilion on his over this pavilion. He's got some panels there, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 panels. It's not a very big system, but that was all the power he needed for his home. He wasn't using a lot of electricity. He wasn't using it for heat, just for lights, fans, stove, that kind of thing. So he installed that system, and let me show you a little chart here. The overall price was about $15,500, which is a lot of money, right? I don't know about you, but I don't have that kind of money just sitting around to plop down on a solar system. However, the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority took right off the top $2,160. That's a percentage of the overall cost. I forget what the number is. Any of you math geeks out there might be able to figure that out quickly, but at any rate, it took that off the top. So he actually only was responsible for $13,310. After he paid that money, once he did his tax return, at that time, there was a 30% tax credit. Today, it's 26%. The federal tax, the IRS gave him back almost $4,000 in taxes paid. So it's not a deduction, it's a credit, which is even better than a deduction, right? They gave him back that $4,000 or deducted it from whatever taxes he may have owed. Same thing with New York State on its income tax credit, $3,328 for this system. It's a 25% tax credit. I did the same thing, and I got similar percentages back, 26% from the federal government, 25% from New York State. It was a beautiful thing, to get that check in the mail or direct deposit, actually. But at any rate, they're really helping to make this much more affordable. His annual production is almost 3,000 kilowatt hours a year. My system's larger than his, and it's 7,700 kilowatt hours per year. And I pay less for my electricity, so the value is less, but at any rate, kind of about the same amount as it turns out, or similar. So that was one system. Then he put in his electric demand at home went up. He changed some things around with his heat. He went to electric heat pumps, and he put in a second system, and it's back here, ground mounted in the background there. So he did the whole thing over again, and bought a new system, got another NYSERDA rebate, another federal tax credit, another New York State tax credit. They now cap it at $5,000. And his final cost was $9,000. So just, to kind of give you an idea of how this works and what the credits are. If you do decide to go with a photovoltaic system and having it installed, like any major project on your home, you want to get at least 3 estimates, right? You want to ask around anybody that has a solar system. Who did they use? Are they happy with them? What did they like? What didn't they like? Make sure that the quote includes how much the NYSERDA grant is, the tax credits, and how much the system will produce. They should be able to estimate that pretty exactly based on tree cover, your roof line, how many panels they're installing, and so forth. In my experience, 2 of the installers claimed that they could put more panels on my roof than was physically possible. One installer was very close. I have, I think 27 panels on my roof, and they were off. The salesperson was off by 1. She's really good. The salesperson was very good. She was very close. The company I hired, they send a salesperson, you sign a contract, you pay $500 deposit, non-refundable. Then they send an engineer to do the final numbers. And I really liked that, because with the other 2 companies that I had been working with, you basically just had to sign the contract. And then the engineer came in, decided the final numbers, and the whole system would have changed pretty dramatically compared to what the salesperson said and what the engineer would have said in the end. I would have had much different systems. So I was fortunate that I had that third company that, seemed more reputable and more trustworthy. So anyway, obviously you want to select somebody who's reputable. Leasing is not a great deal. You wind up spending more money than you're saving for a long time. So I would avoid that. I would go with community solar rather than leasing a system. And if you need to borrow money, which most people would, just make sure that you're getting a good interest rate, right? And no prepayment penalty, that kind of thing, like an auto loan. Yeah, and you're pretty much guaranteed that your system's going to run for at least 25 years, because that's how long most panels are warranted for these days. And they're not going to break right after 25 years, right? There's no moving parts on a solar panel. So if they've lasted for 25 years, they're going to continue to generate solar power. The efficiency will decrease slightly over time. But right now, the testing shows that the decrease, the degradation of the panels is very slow. So it's a good sign. We just don't know exactly how long they'll last. They can be replaced, and they are constantly monitored. They're all hooked up to the internet now. So the solar installer that I hired is actually monitoring my panels. And if one of them stops producing, they'll know and they'll come and replace it under warranty. I can also check. I have a phone app that I can look at what each panel is actually producing. It's pretty remarkable at any moment of the day, not at night, obviously. So I'm going to stop and take questions in a moment, but I did want to just take a look at this bill as an example, because the red box there shows that if you generate more power, and most people do during the summer, than they actually use, you wind up banking that power, the credits for that power, and you don't pay your electric bill. And then in the wintertime, when your solar system is not producing so much, then that gets applied to pay your bill. So you can see in this example that there's already been a lot of power banked, and more is being banked this month. And so the bill for actual power is zero, although the service charge is still paid every month, $20 or so in this case. And this is Orange, happens to be Orange and Rockland. We would have obviously a NYSEG bill, but it will operate in a very similar manner. And this is just a chart to show that, solar production varies based on the season. In the summer, you get a lot. In the winter, you get a little. So, there's kind of an average across, the months of the year. My system got installed in August, so it was like great at the end of August, and September was great. October, November, days got shorter. It started to diminish, but now it's back up again. And I'm kind of like, it's looking really good. My system seems to be doing really well. Okay, I'm going to stop. Oh, it says community solar Q&A, but it's actually photovoltaic installation Q&A. Does anybody have any questions? You can just unmute yourself, or you can put it in the chat if you want, whatever you're comfortable with.
Hey, Joe. My name is Justin Baker. A quick question for you. I know that, so you mentioned that you can be credited back a certain amount from the utility, from NYSEG in this case.
Right.
I thought I was reading something about how that is, I don't know if it's the rate at which you're credited. Something is going to change in the next year or two. Do you know anything about that?
I do not. That's a great question, Justin. And I'm also not sure if they're grandfathering in people that, already have a system. I'm hoping that's the case. I will look into that though and get an answer for you.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? Seeing none. Okay. All right, so I'm going to jump into community solar, and I'll just quickly mention the share purchase because this actually was a thing in New York State for a little while. In fact, the company that installed my panels, they're called Sun Common, and they started in Vermont, and then they merged with a New York State company called Hudson Valley Energy. It was up in the capital region, I think. Both of those companies have been around for more than 2 decades, which that's a thing to look for if you're installing solar, a company that's been around for a while. There's a lot of companies that come and go in this industry, unfortunately, a lot of startups, and then they're gone in 5 years. So picking a company that's been around, that's, moderately big, is, I think, a good idea, because you want them to be around if something goes wrong, a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. At any rate, they were offering share purchases in solar farms that they were building. They're no longer doing that, and they've sold out all of their subscriptions, or their purchases rather. Essentially, the way it works, though, is that they build a solar farm, and then you come to them and say, hey, I want to buy into the solar farm, and you literally buy shares, and they look at your electric bill and they say, okay, for your household, about 25 panels would cover you for the year, given, low use, lower production in the winter, higher in the summer. On average, that should do it for you. You actually buy those 25 panels, and then you pay a maintenance fee for them to take care of the system. So you lose a little of the benefit of owning your own panels. You still retain some of it. There's no New York State tax credits, though, for share purchases. So that's another kind of problem with it. And I think that that's one of the reasons why it's kind of faded away as an option. I suspect, I don't know, but I suspect they were kind of having trouble selling shares when people can just go with community solar or purchase their own system. So anyway, it's not really an option for us right now, so no point spending a lot of time on that. Solar for All, I mentioned before. I'll just quickly show you this chart, which shows what the income limits are to participate. If you're one person, just about $30,000 of income is the limit. If you're a family of 4, it's about $57,000 a year in income. So if you earn that amount or less, you can participate in Solar for All. No credit checks. You just need an electric bill, and I think it's about $50 a month, including the service charge, and you're in. And it's pretty easy to sign up with too. So if you know anybody in that situation, by all means, I can help them, or they can, go directly to NYSERDA's website to sign themselves up. But I can definitely help. I'm kind of trained to do that. And then this is probably the most popular option amongst the 3 community solar options, and that is a subscription. And again, there's you don't pay anything. It says no upfront purchase, but it's really, I couldn't think of a better way to phrase it. There's no cost at any time in your subscription. You never pay a fee. There's no monthly fee, no cancellation fees, etc. You're not actually hooking anything up. There's no wires involved, no installation or anything like that. A community solar company builds a solar farm somewhere in our utilities grid. It has to be within our utilities grid. So for most of us, I'm assuming everybody here is in NYSEG territory. A few people in Putnam are in Central Hudson, but at any rate, you're basically just saying, yeah, I want to subscribe to that. They look at your electric bills for a year's worth of your electric bills, estimate how much you use in a year, or figure out how much you use in a year, and they can adjust that in the future, but they figure that amount out, and then they calculate what percentage of their solar farm you're going to use, or approximately how many panels you're going to use, and they dedicate that to you. And then every month you get credit for how much those solar panels produce, how much electricity those solar panels produce, and that credit shows up on your bill, much as if you had panels on your own roof. But the credit is sold to you at 90% of the cost of the electricity that you're paying for. So that means you get a 10% discount on all of your electricity. Again, that's an average over the course of the year. And the reason it's an average is because over the course of the year, they're not going to produce as much in the winter. They're going to produce in excess in the summer. And just like if you had your own panels, that power, any credits, power credits will get banked and you'll use them, later on. So yeah, that's essentially how it works. There's a little illustration I got from the NYSERDA website. The solar company actually finances it. They build the solar farm. They pour the power into the grid, but only as much power as there are people who have subscribed to it, right? That's the deal. The utility buys that power from the farm if some of their customers have subscribed to it. And that's why it's so important for us to participate, not only for ourselves to save money, but for the future of solar in New York State, to promote it and help it to grow faster and to clean our grid, all right, and reduce greenhouse gases. This illustration, just popping up now, basically explains a few of the details. I really already stated this, why they stated is up to 10% and how the 10% works. The 10% does not apply to the basic service charge, but it does apply to the supply and delivery costs. So that's a pretty good deal. It's not just your supply, but it's your delivery costs as well that you're saving 10% on. So in the example here, if your monthly bill is $120, you would wind up paying only $110, right? Because you're saving 10% of the actual supply and delivery cost. So I feel a little, I always feel a little cautious about bringing this up because this sounds almost like I'm the salesman. I'm not pushing this on anyone, but we have checked out solar, community solar providers, and we found one that we really liked. There were some that had biogas digester plants rather than solar. Some that have wind farms that are kind of controversial upstate. There's a lot of people that don't like them in their backyard. So we found one that does only solar. They do it on fallow farmland only. They don't, go into a productive farm and offer to lease that farmland. They'll only do it on farmland that's not actually being used to grow anything right now. So it's basically, for hay, I guess, or nothing. And they're offering, the 10% discount, which is the most common, although you can actually get a better discount. I'll tell you about that in a minute. And they've created a sign up page, which you see on the screen here, that's linked from our website. And basically, you put in your email address and your zip code, you check availability, it'll say, yes, we have some available. And if you successfully sign up, you'll get a $100 gift card from them. Sustainable Putnam will get a $100 donation for having facilitated the process. And then you'll save 10% on your energy thereafter. It will take about 60 days to 90 days before NYSEG actually makes the paperwork happen so that you're seeing those credits. But the process for you, from your perspective, is very quick. And if you have a problem with it, Karina Ricard Farzan couldn't make it tonight. She just closed on a house and had to empty her house out by tonight. So I forgot to mention that earlier. She was going to be here, but she's always available. She lives right here in Putnam County, over by Lake Carmel. And she's always available to help people if they have any trouble with this. So that, I know I went really quickly. Maybe that was a lot of information. So if you have questions about community solar and want to ask, feel free to unmute yourselves. Oh, I was going to mention about the 10%, 20% thing. There is one company in Massachusetts, one community solar company called Citizens Energy. And they are offering a 20% discount, but there's only a few spaces left on their solar farm in NICEAG territory. So we didn't partner with them because, it just wasn't going to last very long. And they don't give you a $100 gift card, and Sustainable London doesn't get anything, but that's okay. If I were going to sign up for community solar, if I were you, I would go with Citizens Energy because of the 20% discount. It's a great deal. So any questions? Community solar.
If this is Eugene, I'm NICEAG. I'm a caregiver to someone who lives in Con Edison territory. Could I, I have all the legal representatives for that. So could I sign them up through this company for Con Ed territory?
That's a good question. I don't know that they have availability, but when you click the check availability, when you put in your zip code, that'll match with whatever utility
Right.
you're using. So that would either say yes or no. If that didn't work, though, Sustainable Westchester, another sister organization, they have their own community solar program, and you can go to there. It probably makes more sense to just go directly to their website and sign up through them.
Could you just repeat again the name of the Massachusetts firm you mentioned?
Sure, let me put it in the chat. It's the first time I saw it, I thought this has got to be like a scam because they go by two names. Citizens Energy is one. Whoops. Let me make this to everybody here. And the other is Joe, my name, Joe for Sun.
Okay.
And I thought, who's going to name a company Joe? Like I like my name, but I wouldn't name my company Joe for Sun. It just sounds cheesy. Turns out Citizens Energy and Joe for Sun. Joe is Joseph Kennedy, and Citizens Energy was a cooperative fuel oil company that started in like 1979, and they imported cheap fuel oil from Venezuela and sold it at cost to people in the Boston area. And it was one of the Kennedys of the Kennedy family that did that. And then they branched out into community solar apparently, and created Joe for Sun as part of the Citizens Energy group, I guess.
So they've been around for a while.
They have, and I called them up. I talked to them briefly. They were very hard to get hold of. So another reason why I didn't want to partner with them. But my sister has signed up with them and hasn't had no problems. I think that you will get two bills from them, but so you get one from Joe for Sun and one from NICEAG.
Okay.
For double the savings, I would make that deal myself.
Okay. Thanks.
But if you don't like the hassle, yeah, sure. Any other questions?
So can you sort of double dip on these programs? Can you you have your own PV panels on your roof? You can also sign up with community solar for the difference?
No, you can't. Yeah, that would be nice. I wish I could, but I can't. And my system is not. My roof is too small to supply. Everything in my home is electric. I've got. I don't know if you can see this. I've got electric heat pumps that air condition and heat my house. I've got 2 electric cars. I use a lot of electricity, and the solar on my roof isn't enough. So yeah, I wish I could do community solar as well, but New York State only allows you to do one or the other. And that's kind of, a dispensation to the utilities. They want to stay in business and supply some power.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, sure. Although I do think in the future that delivery is going to be their only business, basically.
it's not the topic, but how are the heat pumps working out for you?
Great. We didn't even have a single window air conditioner. So you can imagine this week how happy my family is to have them. But they make, I forget the term they use, but old heat pumps didn't work very well in cold weather, but these are designed to work less efficiently, but they will work down to -15 degrees outside, which is pretty incredible. And I've had no trouble for 2 winters now, no trouble keeping my home very comfortable. In fact, it's more comfortable than it was because every room has one of these, and it just blows a very gentle, warm air. It's not hot the way forced air is, and it's not very dry the way forced air is. It's just recirculating air within the house.
Right.
Yeah. And by the way, there's New York State program for that too. You can get rebates through NYSEG now. They just switched it. It's paid for by NYSERDA, but the utilities give you the rebates for installing them. You can also get a heat pump, hot water heater for your home.
So you can double dip on those, like the question was.
Yes, yeah, you can, and I did. Get a significant amount of money back on them. It's not cheap, but it's cheaper in the long run from the electric baseboards, which is what I had, which are not very efficient.
Right.
So, yeah, that's essentially it. And, I would really just encourage you to pursue this one way or the other. And if you have questions, I'll send everybody an email with, my contact info and links to resources, relevant resources on Sustainable Putnam's website. And I do consultations with people. I'm trained by Cornell Cooperative Extension to do energy audits, basic energy audits, not as sophisticated as a official HVAC company could do. But I can put you in touch with, there's a Putnam Clean Heating and Cooling program where you can get a free energy audit where they do the blower door test and the whole 9 yards. Yeah, other resources. So I hope this was useful to you, and I hope you I'll send you an email, and if you don't want to receive emails in the future, just unsubscribe, and if you're not already subscribed. And yeah, I hope to hear from you.
All right, thanks. You'll send the tab for putting our email in and our social security, our zip code.
Yeah, not your social security.
No, not my social.
Yeah, I'll send you those links.
Okay.
Probably in the next 2 days.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Joe.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Joe. This is really helpful.
Oh, good. I'm glad, Justin. Good to meet you.
Likewise.